What's going on, YouTube? Today I bring you a 2003 NFL redraft. I will warn you right now, there's going to be some controversial things in here, for some of you at least, specifically with tight ends. But without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off at number one, with the Bengals, they would take Carson Palmer, who would play well for them, but they never really had that success they wanted with him. Tony Romo, on the other hand, would go undrafted to the Cowboys, and I mean, you can make a case for Palmer, but really, I think Romo is the easy choice here. Would go on to have an illustrious career with the Cowboys, and really, probably should have won a Super Bowl at some point. Never did, but this Bengals team weren't very good at the time, but they'd get up there, and I think Romo was a better quarterback than Palmer. So to me, easy selection here for the Bengals. Number two is going to be where Carson Palmer goes. The Lions would go on to take Charles Rogers. Now, I'm not too familiar with him, but as far as I know, his life took a few not so great turns, and he just never really produced on the NFL field. You grab Carson Palmer here if you're Detroit, and you have your franchise guy. I mean, the year before they would draft Joey Harrington. Um, I mean, if we're going off my redrafts, I don't remember who I ended up having them take, but you can go see because I have a 2002 and 2012 redraft on here, so you can go look at that. But they land the franchise quarterback here with Carson Palmer, who, again, despite Romo, arguably being better, it wasn't like Palmer was, bad by any means. He was a very good quarterback for a while, and definitely would have given the Lions stability at the position, most likely, had he gone there. So here, number two, I'm going to go Carson Palmer. Number three, the Texans made the right choice with Andre Johnson. Arguably the greatest player in their franchise's history, Johnson was quite simply an incredible receiver for them. It was the right pick, and there's not much more to say than that. He was a great receiver, and with both those quarterbacks gone, Andre Johnson was the pick here. Number four, the Bears would originally trade down and end up taking Michael Haynes and Rex Grossman. Obviously, neither worked out too well, especially compared to a guy like T. Sizzle. Terrell Suggs, one of the better pass rushers in the history of the NFL. I'm sure the Bears would be very happy to have added him to their roster. The Ravens definitely got a good one with him. So if you're the Bears here, hopefully he goes on to have a long, good career here in Chicago. Number five, going to be another edge rusher, Robert Mathis. Now, he went fifth round, and that was absolutely one of the bigger steals in this draft for Indianapolis. Indianapolis would actually have a pretty good draft this year. Now, they took Terrence Newman, who was not awful. He'll go later here in this draft. However, was he worth the number five pick? It's very debatable, and me personally, I'd much rather have a potential Hall of Famer. He might already be in, actually, I'm not sure. But either way, a Hall of Fame level pass rusher here to the Cowboys at five. Number six, the Cardinals are going to take Troy Polamalu. And despite the fact that he was still a first rounder, number 16, that was a steal for the Steelers. Went on to have, one of the greatest careers for any safety in history. Many people are going to argue he deserves to go even higher than this. Either way, he was amazing for the Cardinals, and maybe they win a Super Bowl, with him, because he was just that good, that big of an impact on the defensive side of the ball. They would trade down and take Bryant Johnson and Calvin Pace. Calvin Pace never did anything for them. He was more of, later in his career guy, and Bryant Johnson, not a hit whatsoever, really. So Troy Polamalu here, I think the Cardinals would have much preferred that. Number seven, the Vikings are going to stick with Kevin Williams, who would go on to have a good career with them. I just don't see much wrong with this pick, I mean, you can debate maybe some other players, but to me, I mean, he had a great career with the Vikings, and I don't see anything wrong with the pick. So instead of trading down, they just take him here and get it over with. So Kevin Williams going to stay here at seven, move from 9 to 7, but stay in Minnesota. Number eight, the Jaguars are going to take Antonio Gates, maybe the greatest tight end of all time. Most people would say he's, top five, not the greatest, but he's up there. Another undrafted free agent that, just really was amazing for the Chargers, right? Just for a while with Phillip Rivers, did some great things. And, the Jaguars would trade down, or they would trade up actually, a pick to land Byron Leftwich. And he did not do much for them. Let's be honest. Leftwich was not a great quarterback. Um, I think there's no debate that the Jaguars would rather have Antonio Gates. And again, this might be a pick where some of you argue he should go even higher. But either way, though, Jaguars would be happy. Now, again, if we're going off my redrafts, in the 2002, I had the Jaguars getting. Um, oh, who was it? Now I'm forgetting. But I did have the Jaguars taking a tight end in my 2002 redraft. So if we're going off of that, maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense. But as far as just redrafting that specific draft, Antonio Gates, number 8 to Jacksonville. Number 9, the Panthers are going to take Jordan Gross. Same pick. There's nothing wrong with it. They traded up a pick for him, but you just get him here, and he would go on to have a great career with the Panthers. He was a consistently good year in, year out starting tackle for Carolina, and I don't see any reason to change the pick here. Don't fix what wasn't broke, right? So for me, I don't see anything wrong with the pick here. It's a good pick. Number 10, the Ravens. Fortunately, cannot pick Terrell Suggs here. He's off the board. So they're going to go with Chris Dialman, who, another undrafted free agent, was just a steal for the Chargers. The Chargers, as well, clearly had some good pickups this year, as he would go on to be a consistently all-pro level guard, or at the very least Pro Bowl level guard for the Chargers. And for the Ravens, you can't get a guy like Suggs here, which is unfortunate, but you can still get yourself a very good contributor to the offensive line. Anytime you can help that part, help it out. Number 11, the Seahawks are going to go Lance Briggs. Marcus Trufant didn't work out great necessarily, definitely not 11 pick good. And Briggs, sort of a steal for the Bears in the 3rd round, would make a very good duo with oh wow, Urlacher. Can't believe I forgot that. Would make a good duo with Urlacher, and so for the Seahawks here, I think it's an upgrade, right? Maybe he's not the splash player you want, but definitely going to upgrade your defense, and who knows, something like this could change the past. Number 12, the Rams are going to get Nnamdi Asamoah, I think is how you say it. Sorry if I'm butchering that. They would take Jimmy Kennedy, who I've never heard of personally, and he didn't exactly have the greatest career. Whereas the Raiders, even though he's most known for his time with the Eagles, still he put some good years up there in Oakland, and especially later in his career with the Eagles would have some great times, as a corner, Pro Bowl level guy, maybe All Pro in certain years. So, again, maybe not the big splash player you'd like to get. This wasn't the best draft class, but getting a consistently good starting corner at 12 instead of, a defensive tackle who never did anything, why not? Number 13, the Jets are going to get Jason Witten. So they would trade up to the 4th overall pick to take Dwayne Robertson, who did not work out very well for them. And if you have the opportunity here to get, again, one of the better tight ends of all time, why not, right? And again, people are probably going to say, yeah, maybe these guys should go a little bit higher, right? I just think, for the era and stuff, like tight ends, I mean, there's a use for every position, but they're not the most valuable. And Witten was good, but I think more than anything, it was his consistency and longevity that really gave him the stats and the prowess. Not to say he wasn't a good tight end, he was, but I don't think I think this is about where he should have gone, and definitely higher than where he did go. And I think the Jets, you're happy with this. It's a good, consistent player that hopefully is with you for a long time. Number 14, the Patriots are going to get David Dial from the Giants, who another late round guy, who just would go on to have a really good career for where he went, especially as a 5th rounder. He was really good, and Ty Warren, he was fine. He wasn't a horrible player, but I think if you have a chance to get a player in the trenches, but someone who's actually going to be like top of their position, such as Dial, maybe it's Deal. I say you go after him. Number 15, the Chargers are going to get Osi Umenyiora. Again, hope I'm saying that right. They would get Sammy Davis, who would have, a fine, but, he wasn't great or anything. Osi, I think, is kind of a forgotten name. He definitely wasn't a superstar or anything, but again, he was a consistent producer off the edge. And at this point, where you don't have a phenomenal draft here, if you can get a consistent player at any position, but especially somewhere like edge, I don't see why not. So I think this would be a good pick here for the Chargers. Number 16, the Chiefs are going to go Charles Tillman. And Tillman would have a pretty good career. Larry Johnson was very solid for a few years. He had a few very good years for the Chiefs. I don't know if he was good enough to warrant the pick that they took him at, right? Like 20th, we'll see where he goes in this, right? I don't know if it was worth it. And personally, I'd rather have, again, a consistently good starting corner, and that's what Charles Tillman was. And I'm taking that over a running back. Now the times were different, obviously, 20 years ago. That a running back was definitely more valuable than they are now, but I just still don't think Larry Johnson was that level of a running back. So Charles Tillman going to be the pick here at the midway point. Number 17, the Saints are going to pick up Calvin Pace. Now, this was the guy that the Cardinals picked up later in the draft. And although he never did anything for Arizona, his career really took off once he hit the Jets. And when he played for the Jets, he was again a consistently good, Pro Bowl level guy. He's never going to be a superstar, but he's also not going to be a bum. And considering they took a guy that I'd never heard of, maybe that's maybe I'm weird for not having heard of him, but as far as I know, not that great. So Calvin Pace, probably an upgrade here for the Saints. And yeah, 18, Saints had back-to-back picks, and they're going to pick up Asante Samuel Jr.'s dad, who used to play for the Patriots. And I'm a little conflicted on this pick because I do think, to a degree, Asante Samuel was made better by playing with Bill Belichick. I just think that's typically how things work for defensive Patriots players. Nonetheless, Asante Samuel was a good corner, especially during his time with the Patriots. And again, this would be better than trading up and taking a tackle that just didn't work out. So Asante Samuel, Calvin Pace, you're getting some consistently good contributors here on the defensive end. I think this is pretty good here for the Saints. Number 19, the Patriots are going to take Larry Johnson. Again, times were different, right? Back then, even if Larry Johnson wasn't the best, right? He wasn't the best running back. He was still a good running back. And, especially a couple years, had some really good years. But times were different then, right? And they took Vince Wilfork the following year because I guess they just traded this pick. I'm not exactly sure, but they traded this pick and it would turn into Vince Wilfork eventually next year. So you can debate, like, you know, should we just leave this as a traded pick because you're going to take Vince Wilfork over Larry Johnson? But in this case, I'm not doing trades and all that. I'm just keeping the original draft order. So in this case, they're going to take Larry Johnson, who, I mean, it's a 2000s team, right? And with Brady, like Brady was starting to emerge at this point as a superstar at the quarterback position. You had a guy like Larry Johnson who could have provided some great ground game as well for them. That offense would be, just as scary as it ever was, if not more, which is terrifying to think about. So here for the Patriots, they're going to take Larry Johnson. Number 20, the Broncos are going to take Chris Clemens, who, another undrafted free agent, despite being picked up by the Redskins, would go on to have the main part of his career being with the Seahawks, who he gave good production for. And again, at this point in the draft, you're just looking for guys that are going to come in and give you good, consistent production. And that's what Chris Clemens did for the Seahawks for a while. And it certainly would have been better than George Foster, who just did not last with the Broncos, or I don't even know if he lasted for anyone. But either way, though, Chris Clemens, maybe the Broncos needed tackle help, but there's not really many great options at this point. And Chris Clemens was a good edge. So I think that's the pick here for Denver. Number 21, the Browns are going to go Nick Barnett. I have never heard of Jeff Fain personally, so I'm assuming his career didn't play out too well, or I don't know if it's injuries or whatever. But Nick Barnett would go on to have a pretty good career with the Packers at the linebacker position. And again, same story. Good, consistent producer. The Browns could have used some defensive help. Again, the offensive line's not great. You could take another guy here, but Nick Barnett, it's a good pick here. Number 22, the Jets are going to take Dan Coppin, center, who, again, Patriots, picked up a couple gems later in this draft. And Coppin would be a really good center for them for a while. Again, this is probably better than trading up for a guy that just didn't pan out. Coppin, one of the more underrated guys and forgotten, but he was a really good center for the Patriots for a little bit. So, you're the Jets here, I think this is a good pick. And again, maybe you could say the Browns go after a center, but The Jets had a need at center, especially, so it just made sense to me. Number 23, the Bills are going to take Chris Kelsey. So, another later round guy. There were not a lot of first round people that worked out in this draft. And you can argue they go with Willis McGahee, but he wouldn't exactly have the greatest career for the Bills. Definitely known more for his Patriots days. And for Chris Kelsey, he'd have a good career with the Bills. Again, consistent producer. That's the theme here. There were not a lot of stars in this draft, but there certainly were a few amount of later round guys that would go on to just do their thing at the NFL level, and they were never superstars, but they just produced. And I think for the Bills, get some defensive help here, you're helping yourself out. Number 24, the Colts are going to take Terrence Newman. Now, they originally took Dallas Clark, and I imagine a lot of Colts fans are probably just going to say, just take Dallas Clark again, right? People love Dallas Clark. To me, again, he was good. Terrence Newman was also, once again, though, a consistent starting corner. And yes, you want Dallas Clark, but to me, I'm taking a starting consistent corner over a starting consistent tight end. Clark was good. I don't know if he was good enough to argue over someone like Newman, where, again, it's just I'm taking a starting corner over a starting tight end because Clark wasn't that. He wasn't that special. I'm sorry, but he wasn't that great of a tight end. He was a good one. He wasn't that great. Number 25, the Giants are going to take Corey Redding, another late round guy in this. Now, they would take William Joseph. Again, I've never heard of this guy. So if you're going to stick with the defensive line, take a guy who would go on to have a pretty solid career, I think he doesn't quite stand up with some of the other edge rushers that has been taken. And really, more than an edge, he could be used either way, but more than an edge, this guy was just a defensive lineman. Especially for a while, he was one of those guys where he didn't have the highest sack totals, but he came in and, had a long career with Detroit and played in a few other places, and he did a good job. He did his job, so I think that's the most you can ask for at this point, and that's what they're going to get here. 26, the 49ers are going to take Anquan Boldin, the first receiver off the board, and again, maybe this isn't popular because a lot of people really like Anquan Boldin, and he was a good receiver. I don't think he was that good, and it comes down to the simple fact of, again, you want consistent producers who just weren't superstars, and Bolden just wasn't on that level. But for the 49ers here, definitely an upgrade over Kwame Harris, who just, he had some legal stuff go on with, different things I don't want to get into, but either way, not someone you want to pick in the first round. Whereas Bolden, going to give you a nice receiver threat there. 27, the Steelers don't get Troy Polamalu, who they traded up for, which was a great move in the end. They are going to get Rayshawn Mathis, though, who, similar to, Tillman and the last corner we just talked about, Newman, just consistent producer. And I know I keep saying that, but it's just, this draft is full of a lot of guys who came in and they did their job. And Rayshawn Mathis is another one. He did have a couple years where he played really well, but he was kind of a bit more up and down than some of these other guys. So I don't want to quite say he's as consistent, which is why he's down here. But if you're the Steelers, you can't get Polamalu at this point because he was far, far gone. 21 picks ago. Just take the best guy available, and I think that's Mathis. Then the Titans, and I don't want to keep repeating myself. It's the same thing I just said to a lesser degree. Trufant wasn't a great corner, but for the Titans, definitely better than Wolfhook. I don't know how you say that. Did not work out. He was not a good corner, and Trufant was definitely better, even if he wasn't a great corner. 29, the Packers are going to take Gary Brackett. They don't get Nick Barnett, but they are going to get the next best thing at linebacker. And I think that's our fourth or fifth UDFA at this point. And the Colts also clearly had a good draft this year. But Brackett is going to go to the Packers this time. So Packers get to stick with their linebacker, just not the same guy. And, I think he definitely didn't have quite the career of Barnett, but he was still a solid, producer and, team leader and such. So. Number 30, the Eagles are going to get Dallas Clark. And I think this would have been a really good pickup for them, obviously, because a lot of people are probably going to say he should go much higher. Look, he was a good tight end. I don't think he was that great, but I think he makes a lot of sense here for the Eagles. Just a good player to pick up. Definitely better than whoever Jerome McDougal is. People are probably going to say that this is a fall and that he should have gone higher, but I like it here for the Eagles. I think this is about what he where he should have gone. Solid contributing tight end to add. And I don't know, Dallas Clark just sounds right on the Eagles for some reason. Number 31, the Raiders are going to pick up Willis McGahee since Asumaga went a bit earlier in the draft. And, again, it's just at this point, find the best player available, I think. And McGahee, while he was never a star, I wouldn't say he was, he had some really good years there with the Patriots. And, I think he can contribute here to the Raiders who, at this time, right, they're going for Super Bowls and stuff. So if you can add that ground game, who knows? Maybe they win that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. So who knows? And then last but not least, the Raiders are going to end it off with back-to-back picks here, taking EJ Henderson, who, again, not the greatest career or anything, but definitely better than whoever Tyler Brayton is. And, just a good, solid linebacker to add here. And for a team that's, I think this might even be the year after the Super Bowl. But either way, a team that's clearly, in a good position, adding some solid contributors to both sides of the ball that are going to help you, I just think makes sense. But that is going to be my 2003 NFL redraft. I want to get my 13 one out at some point, and then the draft is obviously a couple weeks away, so mock drafts, positional rankings, going to try to get that stuff out. So if you want to stay tuned for that, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like, and I will see all you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.